The National Armed Forces admires our commander Hugo Chavez. And not only that, but we follow his legacy, the legacy that he continued and was continued by our commander-in-chief Nicolás Maduro Moros. A legacy that has not been changed, and no one will take us away from the path of the Bolivarian Revolution. Absolutely no one. And that leader, as our great historical leaders, Simón Bolívar, Antonio José de Sucre, and others, they are our international, they're our orientation, our political orientation, ideological orientation of this historical bloc. Recently, we were celebrating the independence of Bolivia, 200 years of that republic, with the intuitions and with the desires of our liberator, has passed to being called the Republic of Bolivia. We celebrated from the bottom of our heart, of every man and woman of the people, those who see integration and admire the deeds of those men and women that made that sovereign act of the people of the United Provinces of Peru. Bolívar said that the army of the liberator did not have to deal with such a transcendental decision because our armies have never been conquerors. They've been the ones to carry out the sovereignty and the liberation of those territories, and that feeling remains intact in the heart of Venezuelans, and in particular of the Venezuelan armed forces. So we have been going past and seeing these dates with our commander-in-chief, also with the vice president as constitutional president of the Constitution of the Federation. She met with the governors, and it was a great act because beyond the differences, political, ideological, that may exist, this is an act of national unity from the high command that was here and observed with great impact that the sectors of the opposition and also all the political actors of the nation were all sitting down and having lunch and sharing strategic points and strategic lines of development such as security, citizen security, defense of sovereignty. This is something very important, a very inclusive act in terms of a political act of real democratic will. But it seems that many people are apparently hurt by this, many sectors that are filled with hate and violence and seek revenge. They hurt with this, with such an act like this one. We are coming from an elections that 335 councils were elected, and this was in a peace, in a scenario of complete peace, a democratic act that closes a constitutional cycle. And there are the mayors, they are already in office working at all levels of the government. They are already in functions. But that apparently that is inconvenient for some sectors. Of course, aligned with the U.S. government, they do not want to see a country that is united. They do not want to see a country that is peaceful, a country that has the assassination rate based on a 100,000 inhabitants basis. It's much lower than the world rate. Apparently, these imperialist sectors do not like these facts. They do not like the peace in the country and that the country is moving on and moving forward on its self-determination and development and its true democratic will. This one that we are looking at this moment and being led by the Commander-in-Chief. So I was saying that we were doing a very important, significant activity. We talked with the Minister of Communes. Here with the system of communes, we are fully committed to incorporate ourselves in all the communal circuits. The over 5,000 communal circuits across the country, and we talked about very important things. So the armed forces will be playing an important role in the construction of that model. Without hesitation, without any doubts. We've also seen an important conference from Minister Fredinianes regarding the war battle that is being held at the people's brains. People are targeting the people in this knowledge war, trying to pass on a certain story about reality and conquering people through that. So after Vice President Diosdado Cabello denounced a terrorist plan of putting explosives at an important square of the capital of the country, a square that is filled with men, women, working class, and also children. A plan that was completely unveiled. We've been working on this since Sunday under the leadership of President Nicolás Maduro. So it seems that this has hurt the imperialism of the U.S. and the sectors associated. As we have seen in this moment, the power of the manipulation, the imposition of lies, the constant deceit with no ethics of international relations, diplomacy, and the exercise of politics. There's no ethics there. There's only manipulation. There's only deceit. They've been greatly hurt. They've been greatly hurt by our elections that happened in peace. They're hurting because Venezuela has become a place of security in the middle of the drug trafficking of the region, because the problem are not consumers and are not the ones who are making the routes. For the United States, where there's the most quantity of drugs, for them, they have no problems. But we can say very humbly that there are no criminal bands here, and they have continued with the story of the extinct Tren de Aragua that does not exist here. There are no cartels here. There are no drug trafficking leaders here. And we can say that our Commander-in-Chief has been a hero in this role. It has been the president that has most confronted drug trafficking. Our commander, Hugo Chavez, took out the DEA from our country, and that was a great step. But on the concrete steps, They tell us that the president that was the harshest against drug trafficking was precisely Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros, who was democratically elected by the people of Venezuela, elected by popular sovereignty. So apparently this has hurt all of these sectors, so they come out and they are signaling our commander-in-chief of drug trafficker, and they are throwing out around numbers as if this was a Hollywood Western. And as we have it here in a statement that I'm going to read, I think that the general attorney is being kidnapped. They that try to teach us democracy, apparently that they talk about the separation of powers, and they say that this is a dictatorship, and they say that the institutions are frail. All of that is a story, and that is the mirror of what they are, because that is a democracy that is completely frail, and it's actually pseudo-democracy. I cannot see democracy anywhere around there. A neoliberal democracy that they have tried to bring to other nations such as China. That's completely absurd. But this is the arrogance of imperialism, the supremacism of imperialism, of the US that are trying to, in the birth of this new world, multipolar world, they are trying to maintain their quota of power. They're trying to maintain their share of power. So in this transit, well, as Gramsci said, the most dangerous things, the most horrible things can happen in that transit, and this is an expression of that. So the Attorney General, Pambondi, has signaled and has stated that the Department of State of the United States, an absurd thing, really, the General Attorney of the United States was kidnapped by the Republican Party and by the United States government, and she does what the US government says, as building lies such as the ones that they built out of thin air, because here no sector, no opposition sector, no serious opposition sector can say that there's any drug cartel here. They try to pass drugs through here. They try, but that is not possible here. But trying to build this myth, they build it all over the world, in Panama, for example, where they put a president as a drug trafficker, and that is what they are trying to do. They're building narratives, Iraq, Syria, Libya. And, well, what can we say about the genocide that is being committed at this moment in Palestine? The same people who are supporting that genocide, because there's no other word, that massacre against humanity, it's not only against the Gaza people and Palestinian people, no. That is a crime against humanity, just like Nazism. The same ones who were dropping bombs on Iran and are dropping bombs in Syria, the same ones who were trying to lead Europe to a war attempt, and they are trying to lead us to a third world war with the conflict of 12 days. Those immoral people, those are the ones who are trying here to say that our commander-in-chief is a drug trafficker, that our defense minister is a drug trafficker. That is a lack of respect for the people of Venezuela. That is a lack of respect for the armed forces of Venezuela. It's just like saying that these commanders, these general officers, patriots of our armed forces, they pretend to have a chief that is a drug trafficker. That is a lack of respect for our intelligence. But they think that we are savages. That's what they think. It's a lack of respect for the intelligence of the people of Venezuela, that the entire people of Venezuela does not know of the personal honor, of the patriotism, of the example that is being set by our commander-in-chief every day in every arena, including the military one with its armed forces that he knows so well. So, brothers and sisters, we are in the presence of a desperate attempt. A desperate attempt, really out of this world, because we need to pay attention to this, because the arrogance of these people, well, we can expect anything from that. But this is a useless thing. They believe that we are savages. They don't see that we are a country, a sovereign country, that we are defending it every day, that we are stopping drug trafficking, that they are financing in order to commit these terrorist acts, such as the ones that were denounced by our Vice President, sectorial Vice President Diosdado Cabello. That is where fascism is getting its financing. These pseudo-leaders, they say they're leaders, but they are only speaking of violence and envy and hatred from that drug trafficking that is installed in Ecuador, in Colombia. From there, they're financing all of these activities. So we are the ones hindering that growth. And that is why they're messing with us. They should deal with their own issues, their own internal problems, those scandals that they have over there. Their polls for the upcoming elections. So please work on that. Work on your own country. Work on that country and continue working for all those citizens that are unprotected in the streets of the U.S. It's a real crisis how we see that in the streets of the U.S. so much people affected by drugs, but they say that they have no drug trafficking. So, brothers and sisters, I want to read a statement that we have prepared by the armed forces so we can formalize these expressions that I have expressed at this moment, and that set the message and the sentiment of the Bolivarian Armed Forces in the face of these attempts and all the things that were said by the imperialism. I am going to read the statement to the Venezuelan people from here, from the Ministry of Defense, August 8th, from Caracas. I read. The armed forces of the Bolivarian reject categorically this atrocious statements by the General Attorney of the U.S. as she has announced the increase of the amount given back to anyone who would give information regarding Nicolás Maduro Moro's constitutional president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, our commander-in-chief. These illegal and desperate offers, like a Hollywood Western, just represent one more internal affairs meddling that are against international law and the basic principles of self-determination of the peoples. The attitude of the U.S. government has no limit. They pretend to give us democracy lessons, but their government is not respecting systematically their own laws. They are leading with an arbitrary manner, and they're going against their own laws, and the example of this is the pathetic lines of action in terms of immigration. We also deny the farce of the existence of a drug cartel, and they are denying the situation in their own country in which their own citizens are dying in the face of the drug crisis. We just need to look at the situation in their streets of people that are being subjected to addictions and who do not receive any sort of help because the health is absolutely private and excluding of the majorities of the population. Also, they try to simplify the complex problems of the countries that are producing drugs, and their own programs have not done anything but to increase violence and increase production with grave socio-economic conditions for the local populations. They're also manipulating the true dynamic of the drug trafficking routes that are concentrating in the Pacific at this moment with different destinations around the world, and in particular North America, Europe, and Australia. Let me remind you that since 2005, when Commander Hugo Chavez ordered the suspension of the activities of the DEA in Venezuela, the amount of drug seizures in the country have increased, and the controlled deliveries stopped. These actions of this cartel that never tried for the resolution of a problem. At this moment, the Bolivarian government, through the armed forces of Venezuela and also the security orders of the country, we maintain a frontal battle against this problem, and we underscore this achievement since the year 2012 with the law of control of airspace. We have stopped a number of aircraft that were destined to drug trafficking. Also, we need to highlight the seizure of drugs in the past years, and in the same way, the huge amount of illegal routes and illegal laboratories near the border with Colombia that we have destroyed in the past 5 years. Just as the seizure of a number of vehicles and machinery that were employed in the transfer of illegal substances. In this way, we will not rest, and we will not stop any efforts, and we will continue to go against that narrative that the U.S. is using as a political tool. We want to make it clear to imperialism that the citizen Nicolás Maduro Moros is the constitutional president of the Republic of Venezuela, our commander-in-chief, and he exercises the maximum authority of this institution, such as the Constitution states it, and also he is a revolutionary leader that has won the affection of this institution, with a profound knowledge of this institution and also a permanent example in all his duties, such as our love for the homeland, our love for work, discipline, honesty, and our complete commitment to the defense of the interest of our people. Also, you need to know that the armed forces of Venezuela are not an institution of moneymakers. This is an institution with the highest of values that we have inherited by our liberating heroes. We will not be blackmailed. We will not accept any ultimatums from any foreign powers or from any powers that are emerging in this period of international transition. We ratify our loyalty, absolute loyalty, and support to our Commander-in-Chief, whose integrity we will defend in the face of any threat, both internal and external threat. In the end, we declare ourselves in complete alert to confront and neutralize any action that may attempt against the stability and peace of our citizens, and also to protect our territory. We will continue defending in perfect fusion people's military and police, and also with our own life, our liberty, our independence, and our sovereignty in our beloved homeland. As Simón Bolívar said it, that October 7th of 1818, it's the same for Venezuela to combat Spain than to face the entire world if the entire world will face it. Do not make any mistakes. With Venezuela, Chavez is alive, the homeland continues, independence and socialist homeland. The south of Venezuela is born in the Essequibo. Loyal always, treasures never. We will win.